He was just as much of a hero as the rest of us.
No, he was no ordinary hero. He was a superhero.
He said it! He said it!
Hey, this DLC feels like a filler episode within the game's broader story, but in the best way possible. Now, nothing really happens here to progress Few as a character or help the Time Patrol get any closer to stopping him for good. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that this DLC was primarily a way to capitalize on the new characters and story from the superhero film. However, while previous expansions were willing to give us wildly unique experiences we've never seen from the franchise, this one plays it much safer. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad DLC, but it's one that doesn't quite hold its own against the other stories we've covered so far. Released on May 11th, 2023, the Hero Justice Pack 2 loosely follows the events of Dragon Ball Super Superhero with a few specific twists added in. I'm honestly quite glad that they went a different route. The superhero era was a very unique time to be a Dragon Ball fan. Tons of people, myself included, were hyped to see a Gohan-focused film, but the new CG animation style, the story, and the Beast transformation were massive topics of debate across every platform. Now, I can't say I'm too fond of how the movie's main story was handled, but I do love the forms and the characters that came out of it. Getting to play through a version of the story that's significantly different from what we saw on the big screen is a major plus for me, and I'm sure others who felt the same way about the film will agree.
Now's as good a time as any, I guess. A hero who fights for justice isn't much without someone to play the part of villain. You all set, hero?
Klonoa calls the patroller in for assistance once again, but this time it's a pretty strange request. She needs us to find evidence of a great Saiyaman roaming around Kanton City, one completely separate from the resident version who usually hangs out there. But speak of the hero and the hero shall appear, the trio watches as the great Saiyaman casually walks through the time nest towards a time rift. Trunks instantly chimes in, claiming he knows that this great Saiyaman is heading to the direction of Mr. Satan's house. But isn't that wrong? Mr. Satan's house would have been through the gate way behind us, and this Saiyaman was definitely walking towards that small house where Klonoa is usually found. They're even looking in a direction completely away from where the main plaza is located. This great Saiyaman disappears through the time rift anyway, and Klonoa sends Trunks off to check Mr. Satan's house while we are tossed directly into the time rift before it vanishes. There's been times in this game where it feels like something was lost in translation, and this scene fits right in with those. We pick back up during the Cell games. Few has been so deeply impressed by the heroic feats of the patroller that he's now hyper fixated on the entire concept of what a hero actually is. And what better character to follow throughout time to study the concept than Dragon Ball's greatest hero. But right as the patroller asks exactly who he's talking about, it seems Few's partner has already disappeared. Few takes off in a hurry to find where his mystery hero ran off to, leaving us behind to fix the time rift ourselves. Cell has been infused with dark energy once again, and we need to step in to make sure that Gohan can still defeat him. Right in the middle of this, Trunks chimes in over the comms to tell us that the Kanton City Great Saiyaman is still accounted for over at Mr. Satan's house, leaving a massive question about who that actually was walking through the time nest earlier. This version of supervillain Cell is significantly stronger than the variant we fought in the main game story, actively pushing both Gohan and the patroller into a corner. Just as things start to look incredibly grim for the young Saiyan, Few returns at the absolute last second with his mystery hero to completely turn the tide of battle. It turns out the great Saiyaman is Gohan, to absolutely nobody's surprise. And Few frames the narrative as an older Gohan returning to the past to save his younger self from the clutches of the evil android Cell. The Gohan duo and our patroller manage to defeat Cell, but Few thinks a one-sided beatdown is far too easy and makes for a weak story. Wanting a more compelling heroic narrative, he imbues Cell with an even heavier dose of evil energy. As the battle kicks back into high gear, another time rift that Few opened earlier begins to spike with a massive energy signal. Suddenly Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 drop right into the past. Both androids are initially confused about how they got there, but they quickly notice Cell, realizing he's not only alive in this era, but completely mad with power. The two Gammas announce that it's the absolute duty of a superhero to put Cell down if he's endangering innocent lives. This immediately piques Great Saiyaman's attention, thrilled to find more costume heroes fighting for justice that he can team up with. I really do enjoy the banter between these three. Gamma 1 calls out Gohan's Great Saiyaman helmet for being way too bulky, only for Gamma 2 to snap back that Gamma 1 has zero flair and simply doesn't appreciate the classic retro hero look. Actually pretty funny since the Gammas are partially inspired by Ultraman, who actually debuted a few years before Kamen Rider, the inspiration behind the entire Great Saiyaman persona.
Evil must be punished.
In the name of justice, we will defeat you!
That's what we do! We're superheroes!
Let's go!
This is it! We are finished!
We did it!
That whole sequence was incredibly fun to watch. I really wanted to see the Great Saiyaman make some sort of appearance in the actual superhero film, and this crossover scratches that itch for me. It's just unfortunate that he doesn't stick around for the remainder of the DLC story. Before things wrap up, the young Gohan is completely inspired by the costume fighters and asks if he too can grow up to become a true hero. This leads to the adult Great Saiyaman giving his younger self the exact words of encouragement the young boy needs to hear. Meanwhile, the Gamers are left completely perplexed. They swear someone else was right there helping them in the ring, someone incredibly strong, someone heroic, and some might even go as far to say that he was downright Fu absorbs the timeline's energy and the patroller is sent back to the time nest. Once home, the trio starts trying to piece together what Fu's next motives are, and exactly which time rift the Gammas were pulled from. It's a bit unfortunate that Trunks didn't have anything specific to say about the Gammas here, given that they are advanced Red Ribbon androids he's never seen before. Feels like a bit of a missed opportunity for his character to not show more concern. Cronoa has managed to find a direct pathway into the exact time rift the Gammas were pulled from. But what we find waiting for us on the other side is a much different group of characters than expected. Android 21 and Android 16 from Dragon Ball FighterZ are now officially part of the story, and they are actively playing a direct hand in helping with the creation of both the Gammas and Cell Max. Since Android 21's human form made a brief cameo in the superhero movie, this is the perfect time for the developers to include her in the narrative and ride the massive hype surrounding her character. Android 16 inclusion here also feels like a clever way to retroactively pay homage to something that was completely excluded from the main story campaigns of both Xenoverse 1 and Xenoverse 2, but we'll dive deeper into that in just a little bit. We are dropped right down into West City, and Cronoa warns us over the comms that these versions of the Gammas will have absolutely no memory of our previous meeting. Since they are both incredibly powerful, she tells us that we need to stay on our toes. Normally she would send Trunks in for backup, but he's currently away on another very important mission. But before we can even head off to do some recon, the timeline begins to shift. The Gammas are actively searching West City for combat data, which catches the attention of Piccolo, who's already faced off against one of them previously. Instead of using his usual tactics from the movie, like orchestrating that fake kidnapping of Pan to trick Gohan into attacking the Red Ribbon base, Piccolo forcefully takes Gohan from his home right then and there. It isn't too long before the two Saiyan Namekian heroes cross paths with the androids, plunging all of them into an all-out brawl in the middle of the city. We finally find out that Fu is only here because he wants to collect more data on Cell Max. To make it happen, he pulled Android 16 and Android 21 directly from the fighters' timeline after feeding them a lie. He told them the Red Ribbon Army desperately needed their help and was on the verge of total collapse. For those two, those specific words were all it took to get them to sign up and face the army's supposed enemies. The battle initially tilts in the favor of the patroller Gohan and Piccolo, and just as it starts to look like our squad's going to secure the win, Fu steps in and gives the Gammas a small dose of energy he absorbed from the previous timeline to supercharge them. His original goal was to use the energy accumulated from that past rift to help Cell Max control his overwhelming power, essentially wanting to create a perfect Cell Max. But of course his dark crystals aren't responding properly, so that plan seems to be completely out of the equation for now. Eventually Android 16 flees mid-battle, realizing he's only in the way as the Gamma's power escalates far beyond anything he wants to be near. With the supervillain power-up surging through their circuits, the androids land a devastating blow that leaves Piccolo assumingly down for the count.
Shenron really went the extra mile with that wish.
Orange Piccolo looks amazing in this game. He truly looks like a massive, imposing monster. The ongoing brawl quickly starts to lose its meaning as Android 16 and Android 21 step in to break the noose to the Gammas. They explain that they all been fighting under total misinformation and that Bulma's crew aren't actually bad people at all. The tension begins to cool down as everyone finally reaches an understanding, but much to the absolute surprise of everyone, including Fu, the containment tube holding Cell Max suddenly bursts. Fu figures it might be a volatile side effect from the raw timeline data he's been feeding the android. But regardless of the cause, a completely wild and unhinged Cell Max is now loose on the Earth. The squad flies over to a wasteland far away from civilization, and Fu uses his rift powers to summon Cell Max directly to their location. Dr. Hedo frantically orders Gamma 1 and 2 to pull out of the battle and recover. And at first Gamma 2 refuses to leave anyone behind to face the monster, but Android 16 steps in again, bluntly telling him that they currently aren't strong enough to help, and that staying will only hinder the match. Feeling a massive wave of guilt for having a hand in creating a monster of this terrifying caliber, Android 21 jumps directly in to do whatever she can. However, Cell Max's new energy-infused power-up is just far too much for everyone to handle. Inspired by 21's bravery, both of the Gammas and 16 throw caution to the wind and dive right back into combat as well. Unfortunately, the numbers game simply isn't working against the behemoth, and Gamma 2 begins preparing to use every single ounce of his remaining life force to protect the others. As he flies off to launch his definitive strike, Android 16 watches him and realizes he just can't stand idly by and let his comrade sacrifice himself. He decides it should be the gentle giant who protects everyone, leading us directly into two completely separate endings. Now, if you choose to stop Android 16 and let the canon event play out where Gamma 2 launches his desperate kamikaze attack against Cell Max, we actually get a very cool alternative ending to the monster's fate. In this route, 1621 and Gamma 1 all team up to avenge their fallen comrade alongside Ultimate Gohan and Orange Piccolo. It's a surprisingly beautiful scene and a creative story route that I honestly didn't expect the developers to include.
It's now or never! Hit him with all we've got!
But this is a superhero DLC, and we're ultimately here to see the main attraction. So I decided to rewind time and let Android 16 finally have that iconic sacrificial moment he was completely robbed of in the main stories of both games. If you remember, Gohan originally unlocked Super Saiyan 2 in both Xenoverse 1 and 2 purely because Toa's dark magic forced the transformation, completely bypassing 16's classic catalyst moment.
16!
This is my primary objective. I do not belong in this timeline. But I enjoyed the time I spent with all of you.
Choosing this alternative route keeps the match going on afterwards. The Patroller, Gohan, and the remaining androids do everything they can do to take down the battle-damaged Cell Max, while Fu actually steps in and gives Piccolo a sensu bean that Gohan apparently dropped earlier in the match. The game never actually established beforehand that Gohan was carrying anything or he dropped one, and in the actual movie it was Piccolo who was holding on to them. Because of that flip, if you haven't seen the film, the specific scene kind of comes off as a bit of a convenient plot device. Regardless of that, now that Piccolo's back up on his feet, we get treated to what might genuinely be one of the coolest cutscenes in this entire DLC.
Cell Max is showing signs of tiring.
Piccolo?
Let's make this attack count, Gohan!
Right. Special beam! Cannon!
Post-battle, the team gathered to mourn the tragic loss of Android 16. Even though it's heartbreaking, everyone finds himself deeply empowered to do better because of his selfless sacrifice. Now, in both endings, Fu isn't actually thrilled with how things turned out, but he still swallows up the timeline's alternate energy for himself anyway. It's really strange that new stage wasn't used for this entire scenario. Maybe the devs just didn't want to render it for the cutscenes. Meanwhile, we head back to the time nest to debrief with Cronoa and Trunks, receiving a well-earned congratulations on another job well done. Throughout these extra DLC stories, Cronoa constantly makes mention of these other mysterious quests that Trunks is currently on. The problem is, we haven't seen a single one of them yet, and I'm starting to think we never will. I'm honestly just curious what he's doing out there that's supposedly so incredibly important. Now, like I said at the start, this DLC wasn't anything spectacular, and it really doesn't hold a candle to the narrative content you get in the other pack. It feels significantly shorter as well. I'm pretty sure I ran through this entire thing in under 40 minutes. But even with those flaws, it's still a fun experience, and if you like the superhero movie, I can see how someone can get their money out of this one. To be fair, I think these DLC packs are bought primarily for the characters included anyway. But with this specific storyline wrapped up, we can finally move on to what might be this game's most absolutely insane story arc yet. The Future Saga starts next time, and boy, there is a massive amount of ground to cover. So make sure you stick around for that one. You won't want to miss it. Did you guys like this DLC? How did you guys feel about the endings? Which ending did you choose? I want to hear everything in the comment section down below. As always, it's been your local overanalyzer Art Tellings, and I hope you have yourself a damn good one.